Today, Hikaru made chess history by becoming the highest rated Blitz player in the world in history. Nobody has ever reached an elo this high in Blitz chess, reaching a monumental 3,408. I can't imagine. I cannot believe that if you gave me every lifetime on Earth, I would never be able to achieve that. That is just insane. So today I thought it would be fun to take a look at the 2 games that got him there. We're also going to look at the 3rd game that he played against Magnus Carlsen, where Magnus Carlsen beat him. He stopped him in his tracks from reaching 3,410. Obviously, no disrespect to Hikaru in looking at that game, but I do think it would be interesting to look at how a 3,408 elo player is defeated by the best chess player in the world. I've also got my Molson with me because it's late and I wanted a beer. Gonna make a note right off the top here. I am in no way qualified to analyze these games and give you in-depth insight. This is a live reaction to me being like, what is happening? This is really cool. It's incredible to watch these amazing players play chess. If you want an in-depth analysis, a peek into the mind of Hikaru, he has his own video breaking down his thought process, the moves of the first 2 games that we're going to look at. The Magnus Carlsen game is exclusive here, and it's just more of a personal treat for me to have a look at 2 of the greatest duke it out in Blitz chess. Hikaru's video will be linked down below. With that out of the way, let's jump into this game. So Hikaru starts with black, and this is MSB. This is Mateus Blaubaum. I'm not exactly sure how to say his name, but he's another, he's an FM. I can't remember the ranking system of all the masters, but very well rated player, 3,076. He opens up with the E4. Hikaru opening up with the knight to F6. We've got these are all Blitz games. I believe that these are all Blitz 3-2 games. I could be wrong on that, but him having 3 minutes and 1 second leads me to believe that is the case. This was for the Titled Tuesday event, so I don't actually know the in-depth reason behind the event or what that event entails. We're just looking at chess games today, okay? I'm gonna shut up. We're gonna have a look at the actual moves being played by chess. Hikaru brings his other knight out. We get the first knight from white side, and now Hikaru moves his e-pawn to e6. We've got the other knight over here. I don't even know what this opening is called. I don't know if there is, like, obviously the opening has a name, but there's no name here in the classroom, which is really strange to me. Chess.com, you guys should have the classroom. We should also add the evaluation bar, and I can even throw the lines on in here so you guys can have a look at what's going on while we're reviewing the game. So the first point of attack here, the first point of tension, is when Hikaru brings his dark bishop out. He's threatening and pinning the knight to the king. In response to this, we've got, I'm going to just use MSB2 because I'm not going to remember that his name is Mateus, and we're going to go into the other game, so I'll forget for sure later on. But MSB brings the other pawn out, engaging his light square bishop. Hikaru does take the first knight, putting the king into check, and that is retaliated with the pawn doubling up on the, what is that, C3 square. We've got d6 from Hikaru, just building a little bit of a wall of those pawns, giving some space, a little bit of a buffer to his king and his queen. The light bishop activates for MSB, and now Hikaru is stepping in and saying, hey, if you want to dance, let's dance. Let's put this pawn in the middle here. And instead of attacking right away, the position is closed by MSB. Hikaru is now opening with, not opening, but pushing his h6. That's probably going to be stopping this knight from taking a little bit of a peek over here. I'm not going to try to understand all of the moves that Hikaru is making. Again, my brain is just not on the same level as him. This is more for me to be like, look at all these cool moves that are being made and let's have a look at the chess game together. So a little bit of a mirror happening from MSB. The queen is now activating. And a lot of these moves are being pre-made, which is insane to me. We are 10 moves in and less than 20 seconds has taken place for both players. We obviously have castling from MSB, and Hikaru continues to march some of his pieces forward. He does castle here after the pawn moves, and you can see, according to the evaluation bar, MSB is slightly favored in this position. So Hikaru probably knows this and is probably from what I understand, when he was playing this game, he was looking to set some stuff up, or at the very least, not make all of the perfect moves, or not all of the best moves, as a way to potentially trap or trick his opponent to get to make some mistakes and get to a position that Hikaru was happy with. So instead of taking with the queen after the pawn off of c5 attacks, he takes with the other pawn. This is locking the queen in. And so this to me is interesting because instead of taking with the queen here, if he had taken here, it actually, you can see the evaluation bar doesn't like that. That's not good. Pawn taking for pawn actually keeps the evaluation pretty much even maybe moving it slightly more into Hikaru's favor after that. The dark square bishop comes over from MSB, putting pressure on the pawn that just took. The rook that's protecting the king, or that castled with the king, the queen side rook, moves over behind that pawn to protect. So if this is taken, there's now 2 points of defense from the queen and the rook. The light square bishop comes out and is now putting pressure on this knight, and this knight is hanging in this position. So the queen moves over to defend. There's still going to be a trade here, which you can see is not a good move from white. From MSB, it actually makes it more even, slightly in Hikaru's favor here. The pawn takes, opening up the D file to the queen. So now you've got 2 points of attack on this D pawn. And the knight has to move because he's under pressure. Now this is protected 3 times from Hikaru, so that's actually really nice to see. Really nice move after the pawn takes to defend and get out of the line of sight. I'm interested to see what the response here from white is. So the pawn takes, I would assume in this position, you are gonna be looking at maybe trying to do either the knight, do a trade here and then take with the rook, or if you're wanting to force the queen to move, you take with the rook, forcing the take into the take, and now the queen jumps down and a bit of a trade. Maybe I'm dumb for thinking the order of operations there would change anything. Probably am, and that's probably why I'm not that good of a player. In fact, you can see that Hikaru, instead of attacking or anything, is just moving his light squared bishop out of the way so that this pawn can't, you know, force this move next for the Hikaru's next move. The queen moves up. This is very bad. This isn't a mistake or a complete blunder, but definitely tilting the favor of the game into Hikaru. And the knight now moves down, taking the free pawn. And now we're actually getting a battery, which is super cool from MSB. So we've got the rook with the queen now targeting. So we've actually got 1, 2, and 3 targeting the D6 square, which is basically pinning this knight to this rook, and it's making this queen a little bit sketched out right now, because if any takes happen, let's say take, Hikaru ends up losing the queen, and he's now down a rook with 2 rooks and a knight in the late game. So the knight actually gets out of the way. This is awesome. This is actually super cool. So if the queen takes back. If queen takes, he loses it. What does he do? He does end up putting Hikaru into check. Hikaru takes back with his rook. The rook retakes, and the king moves out of the way on the back rank. Okay, very interesting here. The position is almost completely losing for white here, so I'm curious to see how the game closes out. We've got the dark square bishop for MSB moving to the back rank. The knight is now offering a trade. Very interesting, and it is not taken. Now, I don't know why that wouldn't be taken. In this position, it's actually completely losing because queen to G2. Oh, very interesting. Queen to G2 is checkmate. But why is queen to G2 Oh, I see. Very cool. Okay, so the reason that this move happens here, and because the trade is actually bad, is because if Hikaru takes, the knight is there to defend from the checkmate attack. Very cool, very interesting. We probably could have looked at a few more of those moves earlier in the match, but I'm kind of excited to get through this, and we've got 2 more games to look at after this. So that's a really cool move. Amazing for MSB to see that. It took him 30 seconds to make that move after Hikaru took 2 seconds, and from there only 4 seconds to decide to put some pressure back on this knight, which is going to be very interesting to see what the response here is. So leaving the knight to be a sacrificial lamb, but putting a pawn in the way. Man, these people, these grandmasters, these masters, the FIDE ratings, whatever rating system these guys are on, is just another level. Knowing that you can sacrifice the knight to put the pawn out so that you aren't getting checkmated and actually still protecting and winning a queen in those trades is incredible. So the knight obviously does get taken. After that, we've got the dark square bishop trying to get involved. It looks like maybe trying to target this pawn as well as this pawn, maybe cutting something off actually is most likely what's happening here, cutting off the check from the queen. So the queen decides to move over. Very cool. With only 15 seconds left, this looks like it's targeting, I don't know what this would be targeting. Maybe he's worried about the knight moving over, but this would be blocking Hikaru there. So he moves the rook up to d4. From here, Hikaru moves over. This is actually giving a slight advantage back to white after this queen move. Interesting. So I wonder why Hikaru in this position, knight to g6, knight to g6 is best, which would be defending this twice. So knight to g6 is actually best here. That's not what he does. He moves the queen over. This is queen to e7 is not in the top 3 lines even. The other one would be queen to e7 moving down. I imagine trying to do some sort of a pin here or even getting up here on the A file. So after this move, the rook takes the pawn, which is giving them, like I said, a slight advantage or a slight tilt more in their favor from the evaluation bar. Hikaru moves this pawn up. This is actually not a great move from Hikaru. So in this position, it's saying again, knight to g6, queen to e7, or pawn to f6. So it's the 3rd best move. It's still a good move, but it is slightly giving the evaluation over to MSB. After taking this, we're almost in a completely losing position. So the king is obviously just going to move out of the way. He's not even a threat, so there's no reason to rush moving the rook out of the way. And for that reason, he moves his dark bishop back. Knight is now getting a little bit more involved, going to be forcing the move from the bishop. Does not move. Interesting. So here, best move would be bishop to g5. So you come all the way down here. Really, that's the best move? Bishop to g5 is best move for this? And then white is completely winning. Wow. That's crazy. So if MSB, instead of moving back, had moved down after the knight threatened, that would be an almost completely losing position if Hikaru takes with the pawn. I wonder what the follow-up for that is. Here to here, if Hikaru takes with the pawn, oh, because it leaves the queen hanging. Hikaru's not gonna make a mistake like that. Okay, just kidding. Sorry, I'm dumb. Okay, Hikaru would not make that mistake. It doesn't really matter. It's not what happened in the game. Anyways, the rook moved up to h4. The knight obviously takes, Interesting to see that the rook forces this check. It is protected, so the queen can't do anything about it. The king does have to move out of the way, but it's interesting to force that as opposed to trying to even out some of the material with him only being down by 3. In this position after the move, it is saying c4 or rook taking c1. So either moving the pawn up or the rook taking would have been better in this position. Now, of course, this guy's playing with 3 seconds left on his clock, with Hikaru having a 42-second time advantage. So you can't fault him for, not seeing that and deciding, hey, if I force a check, it might give me a little bit of extra time. Hikaru obviously moves over immediately. The king now moves over to protect himself from being put into check. I imagine that was a preemptive move from MSB. The rook is now going to threaten the knight. However, I imagine Hikaru is just going to put the king back into check. He cannot move back this direction or this direction because of obviously the queen has this diagonal, but he can either move back or he can move the rook in the way. He ends up moving back into the corner. Now the pawn is pressuring the rook. The rook moves down, putting some pressure on the pawn. Queen moves over here, which is now threatening check on the king. Rook puts the Hikaru's king into check. He moves over, take. Rook moves up. Queen puts the king into check, and this is now a completely losing position. The king moves out of the way. Hikaru takes a pawn. Check again. Pawn's marching up. Check again. Pawn, takes, very, very not good position right now for MSB. Takes, putting the king into check. He moves over to protect the rook. Great play. Pawn takes. We're sitting on the last 3 seconds, living on an absolute prayer for MSB, putting the queen under pressure. Hikaru actually sacrificing the queen, and now Hikaru is going to stall both of the pawns that are doubled up on the G file. And after this, this is just a resignation from MSB, having 2 passed pawns too far along for the king to catch up to. So that is the game that kind of broke the record, I believe, for Hikaru for the world's best blitz rated player. After this, he went on to play yet another game. This is against Chess Lover 0108, rated at 3088. Again, I will say Hikaru has a breakdown of the game we just looked at as well as this game. So if you want to have a look at the inner mind of Hikaru, why he played what he played, a little bit more of an in-depth explanation plus analysis, have a look at his video, link down below. We're going to look at this game now. I'm going to try to remember that we have the classroom tool at our disposal. Let's turn the evaluation and the lines back on as well. And let's jump into Hikaru playing white this time. So he opens up with b3. These openings we'll take a look at. There's obviously reasoning behind every move being made, but I think the mid to late game is where it gets really exciting to see some of those things and the evaluation bar flipping back and forth. So this is, it's not the English opening from Hikaru. It's not an opening I'm familiar with at the very least. That's just because I'm a fairly new chess player, okay? That's totally fine. Pawns moving up here on the C and D files, staring at each other with knights protecting both of these D file pawns. So Hikaru opens this up, taking c5. The queen now moves out to attack that hanging pawn. The knight for him moves down to d2, and the queen does take the hanging pawn. After this, we are kind of getting the other pawns engaged. I imagine it's to set this up. Yes, so putting some pressure on the queen, forcing him to move to the other side. Now pinning the knight to the queen. The light square bishop is going to move up, starting to put some pressure on this pawn, protecting the king, who's already castled, and Hikaru has not castled. 11 moves in. Pawn putting pressure over here. After this opens up, you're going to have the A file pretty much open to the black rook. Take happens, take take and take. So a trade of rooks with the queen now having control over the A file. An interesting choice. It's something I personally try to avoid in my games. Again, I'm not at the same level as these guys. They have a much higher overview of what's happening in the game. You will also want to notice that Hikaru has almost a 1 minute advantage in this position right now, okay? I was able to figure out how to throw the timestamps on here. Hikaru has a crazy time lead already in this game. He moves his Dark Bishop up, Knight retreats back. Interesting to not get the queen involved, but I imagine, you know, you've got a lot of premium pieces that can put your queen into some precarious positions, so trying to move it around here is good. This knight move is very interesting to me because you're offering the trade in order, I assume, to also, like you're losing a knight. This knight will then be pressuring the Dark Bishop and the pawn that's protecting the king on the F file. But when this opens up, you get to take, and it forces the king. Oh, interesting. That is why the queen is still here on 8. Guys, this is why it's so much fun to have a look at these high level games, because you notice stuff that you didn't notice when you're like, why is this happening? Why are you putting this here? If the opponent, if chess lover 0108 is to move the knight to take on E4, when Hikaru takes here, he gets the rook for the price of a knight and a bishop, but he controls the A file completely, or the A diagonal, the A2H diagonal. I don't know. Is there a way to say that? If there is, please let me know in the comments. I like to learn my new terminologies, but that's really fascinating. So he's got a battery here with the queen and the Dark Bishop. So that's why he does that. And to chess lovers' credit, obviously a very well-rated player, he does not fall for the trap. He does not get his knight involved, leaving that open to be taken. So now his light bishop is putting pressure on the F3 knight, moving this knight over, putting pressure on the dark queen, the black queen. I like calling it the dark queen. It's kind of like I'm calling it the dark knight, like Batman or something, but it's just the queen. For chess lover. I need another drink of beer. How about that? Basically, non-stop talking here for 25 minutes. I'm a little parched. Okay, queen moves up to safety. This pawn is not hanging. This knight moves back now. This is the other knight. So originally we had the knight on E4 moving down to G3. The knight that was on F3 now moves up to E5. This looks like, I don't know what this would be doing necessarily. Maybe enticing this knight to move in another direction, so that when this knight moves, you now have the open diagonal. Light bishop is looking for the trade now, and he does get it. So Hikaru does trade knight for, well, bishop for bishop, but engaging this knight a little bit closer to the protection. Look at this absolute impenetrable fortress from black. It's actually insane how many pieces are just staring down the rest of the board. Hikaru now looking to maybe try to find a back rank mate. Queen is getting involved again. And throughout this entire game, I've been kind of keeping my eye on the evaluation bar. It's been very even, very dead even so far. So this knight is getting involved. This move here is pushing the evaluation a little bit more in Hikaru's favor. Knight moves down, putting pressure on the queen. Queen cannot move down, cannot take without losing. So moves back up to the position that he was in earlier. It's very difficult. This queen, Hikaru has trapped her in a really horrible spot because she can't go here. She cannot go here. She cannot go here. She can't go here. She can't take. She can't go here. The queen is relegated to this position unless these knights move in a way that's not great. So your queen, even though it's on the board, is basically trapped. It's in its own she's in her own little prison, not able to do anything unless you decide to find a trade. This is a bit of maybe a relief to the to Chess Lover, because now he can move his queen back to take, which he does, and that's going to give her a little bit of freedom. But in this position here, I wonder if Hikaru knew that this would open up the queen, giving her some breathing room, or if the idea could have been to maybe just lock the queen into this part of the board and maybe try to find a way to promote this pawn. Then you get 2 queens with a back rank mate, something like that. Because he does move for the pawn here. Queen now moves out, and it is getting a little bit closer to even. After this, the rook moves over, protecting the ever so important king. This knight moves back, giving Hikaru an opportunity to now pressure, a little bit of pressure. I mean, obviously you don't want to trade the queen for a rook, but putting a little bit of pressure here, definitely putting pressure on the knight that is now hanging, and that knight moves over to put pressure on the queen. Hikaru moves back. The rook now moves over, so they're looking to eliminate the threat of this pawn that might try to promote a little bit later in the match. He's now going to put some pressure on this knight, so obviously take happens, take happens. He moves down, putting pressure on the queen again. Queen takes, pawn moves up, giving the king a little bit more breathing room. This pawn moves over, this knight moves here, looking to do something. I don't know what. Maybe stopping this pawn from moving up on f6, because if this pawn does move up, the queen can now move and be protected with a check. This move here, so this pawn, actually, let's have a look in this position. Rook to b5 is best. So rook down here is best for black, and then from here, knight to f3. Knight to f3 is best for Hikaru. However, in this position, the pawn on the h-file pushes forward, and this, it looks like, is probably going to seal the deal for the loss for our friend, our dearly beloved friend, Chess Lover. Hikaru now getting a fork on the queen and the rook. That's gonna feel pretty horrible. Chess Lover offering a trade though here for the queen. So in this position, Hikaru should be taking here. And the reason for that makes a lot of sense. If Hikaru takes the knight, the queen can move here and take the rook, but then the king just takes, and the king has an escape route, not going to get back rank checked by the rook from Chess Lover. However, he could also trade and trade. Let's see what happens. He does take the knight, making the best move. Obviously, best blitz player in the world is going to make pretty good moves in these positions. There's 1 second left for Chess Lover, and Hikaru has 22 seconds left. Can you guys just stop for a second and appreciate how quickly Hikaru's brain is working in these positions? It's actually insane, okay? The rook is now putting some pressure on the knight. The knight moves over, putting the king into check. The king moves a little bit closer. Knight moves over, giving a little bit of pressure back to the rook. And it looks like there was a resignation. There was no run out on time. I don't know what would have happened here. So queen to b2. Oh, queen to b2 for black. Then queen to c4 for Hikaru. I don't know how this evolves into a checkmate from Hikaru. Again, he might explain this in the video, the longer form video that he has on his channel. Once again, that is linked down below, so you can check that out and learn from the master himself and actually hear what his thought process was. H takes g3. H takes g3. Okay. F takes g3. King to g8. Wait. Oh, g8. Wait a minute. We got to go this direction. Knight takes b6. Here, queen takes. Queen puts him into check. Knight to f8. Rook to d1. king to queen to f6. Rook takes. King to h7. Sorry guys, I just feel like I want to see kind of how this game could have concluded had all of the best moves taken place. This classroom tool is really cool. I like that you can do this. It's very neat. Rook to g8, and this would be queen takes. And from this position, you're not completely losing, but I imagine there's a resignation after this. You're up by 2 pawns with the king. I imagine there's some sort of resignation happening, or, king is going to march up. You could do something like this. Boom. Like there's definitely, I don't know how these little pawn moves at the end of a game would play out. I need to study more. I need to become a better player. I would love to just hit 1,000 elo in anything, but Hikaru probably wins this position, would be my guess. All right, 2 games down. Hikaru with a 3,408 elo after both of those games. Let's take a quick look at the last Blitz game that we're going to look at today, which is Magnus Carlsen against Hikaru. Let's move Hikaru to the bottom. He starts off black this time, so 2 games where he was black, 1 game where he was white. Let's get started. So, looks like Magnus is starting not with an English opening. Thought it might have been the English, but he should have moved there for the English. I'm sorry, I do apologize for you chess heads out there. I don't know. I haven't memorized every single opening position. I do apologize. So, little bit of a mirror happening here. Hikaru deciding to take the g4 pawn with his light bishop that's been freed. Magnus then overtaking the g5 pawn, and the light bishop moving backwards. I assume this is just to stop this pawn from advancing too far and messing up the pawn structure even more. Magnus moving this pawn on c4, the knight coming over here to attack this hanging pawn, and this knight looking to retaliate from Magnus and redefending here. So we've got defense from the queen, defense from the pawn. He does decide to take. Pawn retakes, and now the light bishop is offering a bit of a trade here on Magnus's side. Hikaru says he doesn't want the smoke, he moves back. Magnus advancing his king knight, his kingside knight. Hikaru looking to set something up, maybe with some sort of a queen trap. Not a true trap, because there are ways for the queen to get out here, but maybe that's his idea. This game, again, is not... Oh, we also need the evaluation in the lines. I'm sorry, I forgot I have to turn this on for every single one. So in this position, Magnus is winning. Let's... At what move here was not good for Hikaru? At what point... Oh, wow, we have to go back. Like, this was an early game offset. Basically, by move 3, after taking here, still 50%, about 50%, okay. And after moving backwards, whoa, we accidentally went all the way to the end of the game. My apologies. After moving backwards, Magnus is a slight favorite. Okay. We saw all of these moves. We kind of understand what's happening here. Magnus advancing, some sort of a potential trap, and it looks like Magnus thought that this might have been a little bit of a trap. He's moving the king over to protect it. The pawn for Hikaru moving up to reinforce this pawn. Magnus advancing a knight, and in this position here, this is not hanging. Obviously, there are 2 pawns protecting, but Magnus is most likely looking to get the light square bishop off of the board. So Hikaru decides to attack. Magnus does get rid of the light square bishop. Hikaru responds by trading. And in this position, Hikaru is hurting. So I just want to take a pause here to appreciate that at this point, Hikaru is playing the best chess of his life. He is annihilating people. He reaches the ultimate level of Blitz Master, and Magnus Carlsen is computing and working just on another level on this game. By move I mean, by move 6 or 7, it's shifted the game into his favor. He's been able to do that. And Hikaru is trying to essentially just play catch up. He's just treading water right now, and the trades are basically even. The only difference is a bishop versus a knight being taken and the 2 pawns. So Magnus is trying to take a little bit more of a center control, and in this position here, Hikaru doesn't like what he sees with this pawn moving up. I imagine the reason Hikaru doesn't like this is because if the queen moves over and the pawn takes, the king gets put into check immediately. In this position, the best move to make is knight to e7. So protecting the king. That is not what Hikaru does. He moves king over to f8, which it was showing up on the lines here, but it is not a good move according to the engine, and the engine doesn't like it according to the evaluation bar, almost putting Hikaru in a completely losing position, moving the king over. Pawn still decides to take. Hikaru moves his king up even further, just trying to get some pieces around it, I imagine, especially having the dark bishop to be able to move back, to defend, to take this pawn out. A few things here I imagine are going through Hikaru's mind in the moment. He is just collecting pawns though, Magnus Carlsen, collecting them like Pokemon, jumping in here. He can basically, he moved from e4, he is now down to c6 with 2 kills under his belt, all right? So Hikaru puts a stop to that, taking with his b pawn. Now the queen comes out to target the hanging pawn, and after taking this, will also be targeting a rook. Hikaru decides to move the knight down, just protecting the rook square without having to get his queen in a spot that he doesn't like. Magnus getting a knight involved. Now Hikaru can also involve his own knight. And now the light bishop is targeting both knights with a fork. I imagine Magnus isn't as worried about this trade. He's really just looking to improve what he probably already has, this little evaluation bar in his head. He's just looking to improve. He knows that he's winning, and if you're in a winning position, trades are usually good. Not always. Don't take my word for gospel. Just look at the best players in the world playing and evaluate for yourself. So Hikaru decides to offer the queen trade. Magnus does take it, takes back with his dark bishop. He loses his one of his knights to the light bishop, and Hikaru takes back. Threatening the knight here, dark bishop decides to get involved. I'm surprised in this position that Hikaru does not take. So rook to e8 is the best move in this position. If he is to do this, there's almost no difference on the evaluation bar, but the pawn taking the knight isn't actually even on the top 3 lines, which is crazy to me. That's insane that this move is better to target this knight. I don't even know why. That's so interesting. I suppose because bishop can move. I mean, bishop has to move and then move and then move to set up this with a rook still attacking. So I'm not 100% sure why that is. Any brainiacs out there, any chess gods who know, let me know. That'd be cool. He does move the knight out of the way now that it's being attacked twice. I really don't understand why that pawn taking wasn't even in the top 3 lines, but okay. King is moving over to a light square. I imagine this is to avoid the dark square bishop from forcing him into check, having to make a move that he doesn't want to make. Magnus taking the most advanced pawn from Hikaru. Hikaru putting him into not a check, but threatening the knight. Dark bishop threatening the pawn. He's now moving the knights over, gets put into check by Magnus. He moves further back. The rook on the, would that be queenside rook? Queenside rook moves over to e1. Knight that's not taking anything, but he is pressuring the dark bishop. Dark bishop moves. Interesting. Oh, okay, so there's an en passant there. So Hikaru moves up twice. I don't know what this... okay, so in this position, Hikaru's best move would be the... Wait. Bishop takes e5. Yeah, bishop takes e5, and then pawn should take, And then king, oh, knight or king, which one? They're both kind of the same. King to f8 would be better in this position. This is not what happens. After this, Magnus Carlsen en passant with 24 seconds left. You can actually see this is the first time I'm seeing Hikaru not have a time advantage. So Hikaru has 4 seconds left on the clock to play this. Magnus Carlsen spotting the en passant, putting his Dark Bishop in a bit of a situation. His rook takes, he takes back. It's crazy that there's only a 2 material advantage, and Hikaru's basically been at a disadvantage this entire game according to the evaluation bar. So king moves over, blocking the rook's file. I'm not sure why. And after this pawn moves, the game is essentially over. So from this position, knight to f4, putting the king into check was actually the best position. This is because if Magnus takes, you take back, and you now have the targeting of both. So actually crazy. Look at that. That is how quickly the chess match can change. If he's here and Magnus with 20 seconds left decides, oh, I'll just take, and now you're in a position where, oh, you're actually almost even again after those trades. So Magnus does not do that. Well, Hikaru doesn't, rather. He moves his pawn up. This is almost sealing his fate. King moves over, rook moves over, knight threatens the pawn that's now hanging, gets a check, which is pretty good. The king cannot advance, wouldn't be able to advance anyways, but with this knight blocking here, the king also can't get a fork. Does threaten the knight. Knight retreats, pawn advances, knight is safe in this from the pawn in that position. Pawn advances again. King is trying to get over, stopping the promotion of this pawn. Oh, not even the king. Wait, why did the king have to move then? In this position, king to f7 is the best move, and I don't know why. That doesn't make any sense. Why not move here? How is that the best move? Bishop to f8. No, knight takes d6, puts into check. Knight takes d6, puts into check is second best move. Rook to b7. Rook to b7 here to stop this. Yeah, I don't know why moving the king there makes any sense. Doesn't make any sense to me, but after the pawn advances, Dark Bishop moves over. That's going to protect from the promotion happening. There is going to be a trade because of the rook that Magnus sets up. So instead of looking for a trade, he decides to just stop the pawn in its place. Magnus moving his king over. Hikaru moving his king over. Magnus moving the king over yet again. This is a little bit of a threat so that if the knight now decides to move, he's going to lose his bishop. Okay, knight putting him into check. Pawn advancing up. Getting put into check, king moves over, bishop for bishop. That's going to be a bishop for bishop trade, which does not happen. Oh my goodness, this is actually crazy. 7 seconds left and 5 seconds left for Hikaru and Magnus. He takes, trade happens, knight puts king into check, knight moves over, gets a fork on the other knight. Oh no, and from this position, Hikaru resigns. Wow, what a way to stop, to put a halt on the advancements of Hikaru. Absolutely incredible. Guys, I spent a long time talking about these games. I hope you enjoyed it. This was a lot of fun for me. I am also going to link these 3 games that we had a look at in the description down below so you can play around with these if you would like to as well. I really enjoy looking at these high-level games. I don't notice everything. I can't possibly reason behind all of the decisions getting made, but it's very fun to look at these top-level players, especially in a blitz game where they're down to like 3 seconds, 5 seconds making decisions. Man, this was fun, especially while I had a beer. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did watching these incredible games. Congratulations to Hikaru for making chess history. If you did have a ton of fun here and this is your first time watching one of my videos, definitely subscribe. I upload a new chess related video here every single day. And if you really enjoyed yourself, if you made it this far in the video, drop a like on it, okay? If you made it this far and you're not liking the video, what are you even doing with your life, man? Man or gal, I'm not prejudiced on this channel. Anyways, I love you. I appreciate you. I hope you had a great time today. I will see you in tomorrow's video. Peace.